When you build things, it's always an opportunity for expansion and growth. Expansion on ideas, concepts, and possibilities. It signals the prosperity of what is possible and provides us all with a blueprint of the structure necessary to achieve success. In America, the construction industry is a large indicator of making progress from an industrial and economic perspective, according to my friends over at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. They report the U.S. construction industry is a significant driver to America's economic health and vitality, contributing an estimated 4.5% to America's GDP, or gross domestic product. It also employs an estimated 8.2 million people across the country and has contributed more than $2.2 billion worth of structures to America's skylines all across the country on an annual basis, and offers oftentimes a key indicator as to the emotional and economic health of our economic landscape. For my friend Zach Friedensohn, he says that construction is much more than just building things. He says that it all comes down to listening better, planning better, and elite communication in order to build the best you can build. By the way, he is the co-founder of one of the fastest growing general construction companies in the Southeast, with over $3 million in booked projects this year. And he says he and his team at GNR Construction are just getting started. Zach joined me this week to discuss the evolution of the industry itself, where it's going, where it's been, and his greatest hope for his company, the industry, and how the industry itself will continue to build on its importance as an economic driver. I'm Kevin McShane. Let's have this conversation. Zach, if you're ready, my friend, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn about your journey in the construction industry, my friend. Good to see you, and thanks for a few minutes, my friend.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, Zach, I know that you are in charge and a co-founder of a company that has secured more than $3 million in secured projects, my friend. So what are your thoughts on the rapid growth of your construction company and how you view the future of the industry, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So, I mean, networking has been the key thing that's worked for us. Just continuously networking. I recently hired a development manager who does most of our networking. He's constantly reaching out to leads. I have my own network of people that I reach out to, getting in touch and reaching out to architects and spreading that platform of that, what we're taking on, what we're going after, and what our focus is. We focus mostly on large scale renovations for commercial jobs and commercial new construction, pretty much 10 million or less. And our goal is to focus on that $10 million, total job costs, and go after it. And that can be really starting at anywhere from $150,000 renovation to a $3 million, 10,000 square foot warehouse build out. It's really all in that avenue, and we're attacking everything that comes in that stream.
Yeah, fabulous, my friend. And tell me, you brought up networking, and Zach, in my judgment, I think networking is the lifeblood and the heartbeat of any business, my friend. So tell me, what do you think it means to be an effective networker, my friend? And how do you think more business people can form more effective network relationships, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so on networking, you want to go after the networking groups that you feel can best grow your business. So we're a part of BOMA. BOMA is pretty much the commercial world for office space. Anything commercial office related, people are networking in it, and that's BOMA. We're a part of CCC, contractors, closers, and connectors. Chris Meyer started contractors, and closers, and connectors, and Chris has grown that massively, and he's just gotten so many developers, architects, small companies involved that want to grow their business, and even large developers. He's getting to come to these events, and it's affected my company growth greatly. What else are we a part of? We're a part of Atlanta Builders Association. We're a part of we're a part of WABA, which is West Atlanta Business Alliance. So you have to spend some money to make some money, and that comes with joining groups like this, and then putting yourself out there when you go to these networking groups. They send out notices in advance, and they say, hey, you're invited to this because you're a member of our group. And we go, and we are resilient with walking up to people and saying, hey, my name's Zach, or my name's Cole. I have a GC business. What do you do? And we find out how we can help them. And it doesn't matter if really you don't feel like that person can help you directly. Like, can this person give me $5,000, or can this person get me a job for $1 million? It's more about the connection and how we can help. Like if I meet another subcontractor or another painting company, I find out how they can help me in my business. Do I want this painting company to work with me? And then I get business cards. I go home after the networking event, and I email every single person I have a business card for, or if they shared me with their card on their phone, and I reach out to all of them. And the ones I'm really, really interested in understanding their business more, I ask them if they would like to come out for a lunch or breakfast with me and discuss more of how we can help each other. And that's how I do it. I mean, if you want to network, and how I train my people to network is to be able to go up to anybody and say, hey, my name's Cole. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Because that's why everyone's there. There's no reason to to not go in with that avenue because people are already expecting it. So you might as well hit them with it right there. And if you guys hit it off, great. If you don't hit it off, great. Move on to the next one. It's like I'm not really there to spend 45 minutes with one person unless we like hit it off like massively. And I always tell people a friendship relationship is 100 times more valuable than any kind of business connection I'm ever going to make. However, I can hit that possible friend up through an email after the event. My goal at that networking event is to get to as many people as possible and to spread the GNR brand as much as I can.
Yeah, Zach, just because I'm curious, buddy, what do you think is the key to sort of breaking the ice and going up to people and starting the business conversations? How do you think we can keep the conversation flowing in business? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, just like I mentioned on, it's really just walking up to people and say, "Hey, my name's Zach." Maybe they have a name tag on, or maybe they don't, and just going up and say, "Hey, my name's Zach," and they'll introduce themselves, and I go straight into it. I'm not the most amazing networker, but I go straight into it and I say, "Hey, my name is Zach. What if they have a name tag, I'll say, "Hey, Brad, what do you do? What do you do?" And that basically means how do you make money? How do you feed your family? Tell me why you're at this networking event and how you can help me. And if you can't help me, how can I help you? How can I be a resource to you, or how can they be a resource to me?
Yeah, absolutely. My friend, I'm curious, based on your success at such a young age, my friend, I'm curious, where do you think your ambition for business comes from, my friend?
My ambition from business comes from, I grew up with a father that, did good some years, did not so good the next year. He would have runs, and I love my dad, but he would have good runs, and he would have really, really bad runs, and that brought us to different living situations, and growing up seeing that, and coming into being an adult, I've wanted to come into the business world and figure out how consistent and hungry I can maintain. My hunger for growth, my hunger for entrepreneurship, my hunger to leave something for my family and their family's family and their family, and to not only leave money, but to leave jobs for them, to leave an understanding of, hey, Zach died, but he left this company, this high net worth company, and you not only have a job for the rest of your life, but there's funds set up to support you in what you want to do. And I think to a certain extent, as long as they have that hunger and that ambition to grow that, that's what keeps me hungry. I want to see my kids be successful and have more opportunities than I was given.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zach, you said that construction and business, it starts with active listening and communication, my friend, so that you can build better. So why do you think communication and listening is the key to building a successful construction company and business, my friend? Tell me more.
Yeah, so my slogan is listen better. No, my slogan is plan better, listen better, build better. And that's my slogan because I believe that listening from the get-go and understanding a customer's point of view or what they're trying to create is so important in coming to the finish line, especially with the customer. I've seen GCs and renovation subs and guys leading projects get fired in the middle of the project because they're simply not listening. They're simply not understanding what the customer is asking of them. It could be as simple as, Zach, we think you know how to build this, but our main focus is a clean construction site. And our main focus is not putting extra pollutions out. Or our main focus is, maintaining a clear communication between you and me. And whatever the focus is, you have to understand that. I'm sure it's happened a million times where GCs or renovation companies or roofing companies get fired for nothing having to do with the quality of their work. Does that make sense? I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Absolutely, my friend. And I know that you also believe that listening leads to a great leadership in business as well, my friend. And I know that you've learned lessons in the field about leadership and how to conduct yourself in business. So what do you think is the key to becoming an effective leader, my friend?
You know, from listening to my employees and understanding what their drive is, all the way to listening to the customer or listening to a subcontractor of what they need from you. Listening to a subcontractor, what they need from you, that means making sure materials show up when they're going to be there, or they're already there before they get there. Or, an employee simply telling you, hey, Zach, how I find growth and how I want to grow is A, B, and C. And if you can't commit to that person in that interview telling you how they grow from you asking the question, from you actually being the person to ask the question, be like, hey, Cole, or hey, Abby, or hey, Brandon, what's your end game? Where do you want to be at in 20 years? Where do you see yourself in 20 years working at this company? And if you can't listen to what that's being said from that, there's no way that employee is going to last with you for a long time. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be able to really understand what people are telling you, from the sub to the employee to the customer. And if you can't do that, it's going to be really hard for you to elevate a company.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Zach, I'm curious to ask you about effective team building and building teams that are both effective and also sort of build a sense of camaraderie that makes going to work, enjoyable. So what do you think is the key to building effective teams, my friend?
Yeah, so effective teams, either it's my subcontractor teams or it's my employee teams. Employees being people that I actually pay a salary to, and then my subcontractors, the people that are actually on job sites that are helping me get to a certain point and do and finish their job. That I think that building effective teams comes down back to listening and comes back to communication and having policies and procedures that are set out from the get-go. I'm learning a lot right now, that the sooner I tell somebody about the expectation or a policy or a procedure, the sooner they come to understand what's expected of them. You know, it doesn't matter if I'm telling my subcontractor from day one, hey, you need to sign this sign-in sheet and you need to make sure you wear a safety helmet and a vest at all times. There's no reason for you not to be wearing either one of those things. And just creating that expectation from the get-go. And I think as long as everybody's on the same page, because I'll get calls all the time, be like, hey, why do we have to wear a hard hat if the electricians aren't wearing hard hats? And be like, listen, it's really unfortunate they're not wearing hard hats. I can promise you, I told you the same thing I told them from the beginning of this job. I am going to make it my duty to get out there ASAP. And if they're not wearing hard hats by 3 o'clock today, they're going to be kicked off the job site. And it's just as simple as that. And you have to have a line to where nobody is able, including myself, that nobody is able to cross. And that's more on the respect side and on the policy side and the policies and procedures. Like, hey, if we're not standing within these guidelines, you can no longer play on my playground. I will kick you off my playground if you can't stay within these guidelines, because these guidelines are the fundamentals of just humanity. Like, we have to respect each other. We have to treat each other how we want to be treated. And if you can't do that, you're going to be kicked off the playground. And you have to be able to call out when that's being done, almost while it's being done, especially in the presence of other people, because that shows me, that shows everyone else in the group, like, oh wow, it's like, we knew that procedure, we knew that policy, we knew we had to stay respectful to each other, we knew we had to treat people how we wanted to be treated. And that's what happens when someone doesn't stay within those guidelines. They're kicked off the playground.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I'm curious to also ask you, Zach, about building an inclusive culture. I talk to businesses all the time about embracing diversity as a strength in business. So how do you think inclusive cultures can help businesses grow faster? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
What kind of cultures?
Inclusive cultures. How do you think inclusive cultures can help businesses grow faster?
Yeah, so company culture is really everything. Before we had an office, a lot of the employees were working from home, and especially even during COVID, people were working from home, and it's very hard to create a company culture when people aren't in the same place. It's very hard to create a company dynamic when nobody's in the same place. So eventually we told everybody to come back into the office, and the main reason we did that, and we told them we were doing it, was to create a better company culture. And I think company culture has to do with people being in the same place, and also setting policies and procedures around that culture. I haven't incorporated it yet, but I want to start having goal meetings where all the employees come together and we discuss what our annual and 10-year goals are. And what those goals are, I have to listen to as the owner of the company and understand, or even the supervisors over those people need to listen to and understand, like, how do we help these people telling us their goals and their visions? How do we help them get there? Because if I can't do it within my company, they're not going to stay here a long time. And employee retention is so important within a company because it costs you so much money every single time you lose somebody. You have to start from scratch. I have to start from scratch on the training side, or that supervisor has to start from scratch on the training side. So, company culture is so important because, you know, it creates who people want to hang around, and if they want to stay there for a long time, or if they're just doing it on a limited time. And my company culture is all about accepting you for who you are, and you coming in and understanding how we want to help you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, you brought up retention, so I'm curious to ask you that. I know that in the States, buddy, that just went through a change in administration, and certainly the construction industry has been affected by the immigration policy and the tariffs that are going on between the U.S. and other countries. So I'm curious to ask you about how you are thinking about retaining people based on the fact that there is a new administration and keeping morale high in the construction industry during this time, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so tariffs. The tariff discussion has definitely played a part in the construction industry because suppliers are telling subcontractors, and suppliers are telling me, the ones that I go through, like my mechanical, electrical, and plumbing subcontractors will all tell me, like, listen, I gave you the estimate, but that's only good for 30 days, and suppliers are already telling us we can only keep at their estimates good for 10 to 15 days. So, and I'm sure employees consider the long-term growth of GNR, and, if they can feel comfortable, not looking for other jobs, with this conversation going on. Because I will tell you one thing, Kevin, perception is reality. My dad always told me perception is reality. And the perception of most Americans is that, costs are going to go up if the elected officials bring up tariffs. It doesn't mean if it's actually going to happen, but that's just the reality we've been seeing and we've been talking about. So, I haven't really brought it up much, but you bring up a good point, and I think it all comes back to the company culture and how you have that open door policy of, if someone's really feeling like their job is at risk, or if someone is really feeling like, hey, Zach, I'm concerned about this, I want them to come talk to me, or I want them to come talk to their supervisor, and just have a clear understanding of what's going on. Like, there's a lot of confusion with the tariffs also. I want my employees and my subcontractors to be comfortable coming to me with whatever they have a concern with. And I think that ties back into company culture.
Yeah, and Jack, I'm curious, during your time in the industry, buddy, what do you think you've most learned about leadership, communication, and motivating people to maximize their fullest potential. What do you think is the greatest lesson that you've learned specifically about effective leadership?
So, obviously I was an employee at one point. And, I've, from the age of 15 to 2019, I'm 35 now. So what is that? 5 years ago. So from the age of 15 to about 27, I worked for other people. And during that time, I took close understandings of, okay, I like what this company does. I don't like what they do here, and I hate what they do here. So during that time, I've taken what I like and incorporated it in my company. And a lot of the things I've already talked about are things that I've learned at these past companies. And also, I get my employees' feedback. Feedback is probably the most important thing anybody can ever give you. And if you're not open to it, you're already losing. So, what was your original question?
Yeah, I was just curious about the greatest lesson you've learned while being your own boss about leadership and communication, and you just answered it, buddy.
All right, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zach, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on a couple of statistical reports, and I'm going to start with one from NBC News that reported last year that the construction industry has to bring on an estimated additional 501,000 additional workers on top of the traditional hiring cycle to meet the demand of the industry as it continues to grow, my friend. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on those findings and why you think the construction industry continues to grow in popularity, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
The construction industry growth. I think, and you were talking about the rise in employees.
The rise in the need to hire more people. What does it tell you about the growth of the industry, and what do you think of the report, my friend?
I think it's there's two different scales. You could be a young company and you could be a large company, and I think the larger companies are hiring nonstop right now because there's such a demand for construction, and a lot of these larger companies are doing their development from in-house. Very few large companies are not developing in-house. You know what I mean? For a large construction company to only continue to do third-party construction, and when I mean third-party construction is they're getting hired from somebody else to do the actual construction part. And I think eventually, as you grow your construction company or as you grow your development company, you're starting to bring in a GC in-house on the development side, or you're doing the opposite and you're a construction company and you incorporate the development side in-house. So I think on the large scale, construction companies are continuing to hire because they're growing and they need to meet that growth with help, and they need a lot of help. Like right now, I'm looking for a superintendent and an estimator, because I'm experiencing growth. So I think it's valid. I think it's all valid.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last sort of statistical question I've got for you, buddy, comes from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics that reported that the overall employment in the construction industry but is growing faster than any other occupation as of 2023, my friend. And, they also report that, by each year, more than 660,000 new job openings will occur because of the rapid growth. And finally, buddy, they tell me that the average annual sort of income and wages for this industry comes in at just over $55,000 a year, my friend. So I'm curious, when you hear those numbers, do you think, first of all, from a wage standpoint, that's enough money to attract the top talent needed to sort of perform these jobs? And what do you think of the findings that the construction industry is one of the fastest growing in America? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, on the fastest growing, last year I did just under $1 million, and this year I plan to do over 3 million. So we're seeing a 3 times increase in my specific construction business, and I think that translates over to what your statistics were just said, that there's a demand for construction needs, and GCs, general contractors, need help. If it's not on the accounting side, it's the human resources. If not the human resources, it's the in-field stuff like superintendents, foremen. So that makes a lot of sense, and that's exactly what I'm experiencing this year. So what was your part 2 question?
Yeah, I was just curious about wages, because they said that
wages.
Yeah.
That's maybe I pay all my people way more than that, and even the going rate for a superintendent is 100 to 150K. The going rate for a foreman is around 60 to 70K. So I think that's low, unfortunately. I would love it to be reality, the average, but that's definitely not true in my company.
Yeah, for sure. And my friend, I'm also curious to ask you, if someone wants to pursue a career in construction, it can be lucrative if you know what you're doing. But I'm curious, since you've been in the trenches for a while now, what's your best piece of advice for any young person looking for a direction in terms of their career, if they're considering construction, about the demands of the industry and how to be successful in it? My friend, what are your thoughts then?
Yeah, so there's definitely barriers to entry on the general contracting side. There's definitely an application process. You have to work under another GC for a certain amount of years, and then you have to take a very, very difficult test with the state, and then you have to take another business test. The regular test is the NASCLA, and then each state you go into after that, you have to take a state exam, and I'm pretty sure that's true for every state except like California. And I would go to work for general contractors that want to help you get your personal general contracting license. Even if you don't want to be a general contractor and run your own general contracting company, holding the license will get you paid more money. And I think that should be the number one question going to work for a general contractor as a foreman or a superintendent or a project manager. My number one question, if I went to go work for a GC as a foreman, superintendent, or project manager, would be, are you willing to help me get my general contracting commercial license? That would be the number one question I would ask any GC I would go work for, because they have all the resources and ability. You cannot do this without another GC saying, okay, I'll fill out your application for you. You can't get it. You literally cannot get it. So if you ask that question, and they say yes, you should be open to go work for them. And if they ask the question and say no, I think you should reconsider going to work for them, because they should want to build you up. They should want you to get better. They should want you to learn more about the industry they're working in. And that all has to do with understanding the actual GC role and going to pass a really hard exam, which you're going to learn even more about.
Well, the simplest way to summarize what you just said is more hands make for light work, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Zach, I'm going to combine my last two questions because they're interconnected. But I'm curious to ask you about, for you from a personal and business perspective, what's the best part of seeing young people succeed in the construction industry? And my friend, I'm also curious to ask you about, when you think about your life and your legacy, my friend, how do you want that to be defined?
So I'll ask the young person part first. I think for young people, I think getting, unless you were born in the construction business and your dad or mom brought you to construction sites and you grew up working for them, unless you did that, I think you should go get a construction management degree. And as you get that degree in college, you should be interning with people that are in construction, with companies that are in construction, and make sure you're getting paid as the intern. And I think that's how you start off your career, unless you were just born into this and you've been doing it since you were 11, and getting on backhoes and getting on tractors and helping your dad pick up trash at construction sites. Unless that's your case, you should be going after a degree in construction management, and you should, in my opinion, is you should be interning. You should be interning for sure. Even if you're in high school, you should go after an internship with a current general contractor or renovation company, getting to learn the business, because there's no better time than now. All we have is time. That's all we have. So, and how do I want to leave my legacy? I want my kids to say I was a good dad. I want my wife to say I was a good husband. And I want my mom to say I was a good son. That's pretty much it. It has nothing to do with business.
Yeah, personal legacies are how you build foundations for future people to follow, for sure, my friend. So, I'm curious, what is the best part about running a construction industry in the southeastern United States, buddy? I know you live in Atlanta, and it must bring you a lot of opportunities there too, doesn't it?
Yes. The South is amazing. I lived in Los Angeles for a little bit, and It definitely wasn't the South. I was ready to come back to the South. There's nothing like the South. You know, people just treat each other differently here. You know, they say Southern hospitality is a thing, and I can confirm that it is a real thing. And it's just I think in the South we just treat each other with a lot more grace and a lot more hospitality. And I am I really appreciate that. And I love the South. You know, Atlanta's where I started my company, and I want to give back as much as what was given to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But I see a big fish on your office wall back there. Are you an avid fisherman? Or you just
Yeah. So I'm a big kayak fisherman. Um, I've been teaching my son how to fish. I'm a big saltwater fisherman. So yeah, that's probably my most favorite thing to do, and it's my biggest hobby I have. If you go in my garage, you're going to see a lot of fishing poles.
well, I always say that self-reflection and finding something outside of work is equally as important because we work to live, we don't live to work. So it's important to find those hobbies, isn't it?
100%, 100%.
Zach, tell me if people want to get connected with GNR Construction or you personally, my friend, what's the best way they can do that?
To get in contact with me, you can email me at Zach, ZACH, at G as in go, dash R as in Richard. And you got to remember that dash between G and R, construction.com. And you can send me an email.
Well, fabulous, my friend. I want to commend you for all of the good work that you've done in this booming industry and providing young people with both hope and inspiration and a way forward in the field, my friend. You've really carved out a very successful path to prosperity for you. So I want to wish you all the best and continued prosperity, my friend. And I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. I really appreciate you, and I hope the best for you, man.